RailCats fans, and welcome back to another edition of the RailCats Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Savetic, and we're going to do a bit of a different podcast today. First, I'm going to start off by just explaining how this next week is going to go. This will be like the last podcast that I will do until next week after the 4th of July. I'm not 100% positive. It'll probably be after all that. Just because this week is going to be very hectic for me. We are going to the NASCAR street race in Chicago, so we have to be prepared for that. We have to pack and everything up, and then we're going to the RailCats game tomorrow, which is Tuesday, so I don't really have a lot of time to kind of get through that. So, the weekend, that whole weekend series, I'll be missing when I'll just kind of go over what the games I will be missing. Milwaukee, I'll be able to going to it tomorrow. It's a noon game on Wednesday, so I'll miss that. Probably miss the 6:45 one in Milwaukee, or against Milwaukee. I'll miss all of King County, and I will probably be at the Lake Country one on the 3rd by myself, so that'd be kind of fun. But I will miss the 4th. Because I have to work, and then I'm going to Valpo with family. So yeah, maybe the 7th that weekend, I don't know as well. I guess King County's gone away, but the Lincoln series, I'll be back for that to watch that. But Thresh, remember little kitty, she's getting fixed, so I have to kind of be at home for her sake. So I probably will be, I'll only be at one game. It's gonna suck, but I'm only gonna be like one RailCats game. But at least after the Milwaukee and King County series, I'll be able to go back to actually watching the games again. So I'm just giving that brief rundown of how that's going. So my schedule's getting a little hectic going forward. But yeah, that's basically where we're at on that portion of it. So I think I'm going to take off the gloves a little bit here. I've tried to be as positive and seeing it from both sides of the equation. I don't have a full grasp on exactly how the league works necessarily and how teams are constructed, but I'm starting to get a good sense of how it's kind of working itself out. And this, it's been sparked a good conversation, a good podcast to have at least. I know me and Chuck have talked offline about certain things, and then Adam Heidenfelder came and was on the other side of that fence, kind of, and it's really starting to kind of spark the interest or the intrigue of what really is going on with this team. Because if you take out Sioux City, if you take out Lake Country, Lincoln, Kansas City, and Winnipeg, and I get the first half of the season, the first 4 series have been really good for the RailCats. Then it's just kind of all fallen apart. And it's not like falling apart to where it's like a bad slump and everything seems okay, but it's just nothing. How do I put it? There is, especially coming off of this recent with the Lake Country, with Fargo Moorhead, with Winnipeg, out of those 12 games, the RailCats only won 2 of those. That's a big red flag. And as we learned today, that Ben Miller has been released. Now, is that to do with performance? Is that to do with family issues? Is that just maybe Ben Miller's just done? We saw that with TJ Bennett. He retired at the social media on his side, went retirement, but in the transactions was just released. So I don't know quite what happened there, but like I said, it's hard for me to say that it's going to be based on performance. Um, just let alone, I mean, okay, there was really one game, all right, one game against King County in May 27th where he gave up 6 runs. Outside of that, he has been stellar. Okay, his last game he played was June 23rd against Winnipeg in that horrific game that I'm gonna dive deep into that one to a certain extent. You know, he went two thirds innings, gave up 1 run on 2 hits. That was a disaster in the first place. That whole situation was. But outside of that, this man, you just look and you see his stats. Just now, he has an ERA of 540, but that's a little bit to do with, you know, being a relief pitcher. He's only pitched in 20 innings. That's just so hard. I that was a little unreal to me. I know, I think the situation in Fargo where a couple people got hit, but like he seemed to be a good workhorse for it. I really liked him. You know, maybe the control a little bit off on certain things, but I guess I just didn't understand the fallout with that. If I'm being honest, I would have rather seen Jesus Rosario go. I mean, he's had the opportunity and he's squandered every opportunity that he has had. He's given up 10 runs, all earned in 3 and 2 innings pitched. So that, I don't know if that is just something that Ben decided that, you know what, I just don't want to do this anymore. I can't worry about the grind. I don't, you know, I'm not sure. I don't know what that part of that stems from, but I don't. If it's just a release, then that baffles me at that point. And then on top of that, all the players that were the 2 players, Reese and I don't think the other guy played, were released. So yeah. There's just something that something's not working, and trying to figure it out is like, okay, we would admit maybe last year with Lamar Rogers that we would say, you know, I think they tried to go away from the small ball, right, and they tried to bring in the power bats. You know, Sam Abbott was that guy that was that guy that you would kind of expect to bring in the power. He wasn't he was a home run leader, but he wasn't the leading RBI and this and that. That was something to expect. I mean, realistically, right now the RailCats only have 28 home runs. That is so far off the pace than it was last year. We're getting halfway through the season and we're not even at 40. Like we're just so far off of that pace. We just don't have, you know. The only guy that had 6 home runs was Emmanuel Tapia, and we cut him. There's just no power there, and I don't even think that the small ball portion of his played correctly. I think we tried to play a small ball type of system against Winnipeg, and we showed that Greg Taggart still loves the small ball, and it still can be effective if it's used properly. And I don't know if we're in a situation where Lamar Rogers has switched his mindset. He wants to. I've seen so many hit and run attempts. Now I don't necessarily know if that's just the players doing it on their own or if that's what they're giving. If the players are doing this on their own, there is a massive issue inside that locker room. The key example was yesterday. No, I'm not sure on the inning. I'm pretty sure it was Lingua walked. Mondesi was on third, and when Lingua stole second, and Mondesi came flying home. Now, if that was a hit and run that failed, or if that was a steal and a double steal, a delayed steal home that was ferocious to call, because there's no way. Mondesi is not a fast boy. He's not fast. I'm sorry. You look at him, he's not fast. It's just simple as that. He's a catcher. He's not fast. There should be no reason he should be even attempting to steal. If that's what you wanted to set up, you would have to find someone else a little bit more speed to go there. That's all. I understand you're trying to get offense going, but it seems like every time we get people on base, things just tumble into each other. The perfect example is yesterday. Yesterday's game was very rough. You had the bunt, and Harrison Francis threw the ball wide, and that just kind of started this whole thing. Diaz made a beautiful play at third and threw the ball home with bases loaded, and Mondesi had a brain fart. Instead of just stepping on home plate and trying to catch the ball, he just decides to tag the runner, and the ball falls out. Like, there's just too much. I think it's a lack of inconsistency, but I think the lack of inconsistency is a lack of focus. And the lack of focus came from that first game against Winnipeg. When we look at the, not the scoreboard, when I look at the schedule here, that game that they won 12-11 with, all the runs that Winnipeg scored to really make it a nail biter came in the last 3 innings. At that point, really what turned the table was at that 9th inning, because the RailCats were winning up to that point 6-9-12. Yeah, I don't know. They were winning like 12-6. Yeah, it was 12-6 at that point. And really, I don't even think it should have gotten to that point in the first place, because who comes in at the 7th to pitch was Nunez, and he gave up a walk. J-Man Williams singled. There was another single, so he gave up some more hits. That happens, hits, but really that 9th inning where the wheels really fell off. Who was it that came in the bottom of the 8th? Jared came in, and he pitched really well, and then the wheels just kind of fell off the bus on him, and that's going to happen. We're all going to see those games are just going to happen. But it was just one of those things that, like, it just seemed like a lack of focus, because we had the discussion with Jared, or with DJ Wilkins, giving up all these people's runs, but you got to look at the situation he was put in, just going through that 9th inning. You got 1 out. Jared Price got 1 out. Awesome. But he gave a single to right the first, then the 1 out, and then a home run to Gaskins, and then it was an error by the first baseman, then it was a walk, then it was another walk. Jared Price, so there was an error, walk, bases loaded, 1 out. Jared Price comes in, grounds into a fielder's choice, 1 run comes in, and then he gives up. The wild pitch happens, and then it just kind of all started to accumulate into an issue, is what it all kind of came down to. So when you look at it that way, realistically, if you took away the error by the first baseman that would have been out, you were probably looking at out number 3 a little bit earlier on, and that probably wouldn't have loaded bases. The other thing is also discussing it and looking back on it, is that it seems like when the RailCats get into, I think when we look here jumping a tad bit, just looking at the pitching staff, when we look at the starters, I think our starters are fine. I don't think there's any kind of trying to move or adjust any of that's going on. I don't know if Vivas is going to go back to the bullpen, or Valdez is going back to the bullpen with Harrison Francis coming back into the rotation. I think Harrison Francis did fine. I think, coming back off an injury, um, giving up 3 runs in 4 innings, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts. Best performance, no, but he's coming off an injury. That was probably, that was fine. I think it was perfectly fine. You know, uh, it was just another. What I'm saying, well, I should go with this. Starting pitching is fine. I don't think we should have to worry about that. It's just a matter of where they're going to insert Harrison Francis back in and who's coming out of the rotation. Maybe it's going to be a Vivas Valdez rotation between the two of them to see, one could be in the bullpen, or if you really needed to burn one of them, the other one can start. You can maybe flip flop both of them. I think they've been perfectly fine in the rotation. I think you would probably put more Valdez as that longer reliever role, which I don't think we have, which I'm gonna get into with the bullpen here, is that I feel like the bullpen never clicks, right? It feels like I should say the Lake Country series, they really clicked. I would say the Sioux City, they kind of clicked together. Even really in Fargo, they clicked. But it's just like these spells of like when they click, they're good consistently, but when one person has a bad outing, it just tumbles in through the whole series, and it just keeps tumbling. I don't feel like we have that. I have never felt comfortable with the lead. I have never felt that we have this game in the bag, because this team has shown over and over and over that, one, they can never seem to hold the lead to save their life, and that the bullpen, when it comes in, and it's terrible. There's no like silver lining to the situation, except last game. Everyone gave up 1 run, two runs between Leon and Wilkinson, and Eisenberg came in and shut the door. I think Eisenberg has been more of the consistent under the radar arm a little bit. I know DJ Wilkinson gets a lot of the credit. Granted, I get that he has given up a lot of runs that have credit to other people, but you gotta kind of look at the situations he's been kind of put into. Obviously, last game doesn't really help my case, giving up the 2 hits, the 2 runs, that kind of stuff. His ERA is kind of skyrocketed back up, but I don't think a lot of that issue kind of led into the offensive issue that we're also running into, is the inconsistency in the offense. We don't have anyone, I think we have a bunch of guys that are, when we look at the RBI leaders here, Mariaga, Castillo, and Del Valle Mariaga is at 35 right now, but everyone else of those two are above the 30. Are above the 25 mark, but Nova, Lingua, Diaz, and Tapia are all at 15. Tapia was at 15, so we take him out of that portion, because obviously he's no longer with the team. You have Diaz, who is at 16 and who has been really the leadoff guy, with Woodworth being out to a bit of a knee injury, I would say. I think that's what Chuck told me, so I think that's what the issue is on that portion of it. But outside of that, okay, Contreras is new. He's only played in 14 games. He has 6 RBIs. He's looking maybe a bit of a turnaround. The 2 home runs, I'd say he's probably the most impressive that we've had out of that. But Woodworth, Greeley, Valera, Decker, Mondesi, there's a huge gap between what Tapia and Contreras is, or even Diaz Contreras. That's a 6-run difference in what we're having. So that's what kind of made the Tapia move a little bit odd, to a certain extent. It's just that you're relying on a bunch of these players to be successful, and it's just the opportunities aren't there. I feel like when the opportunities get there, they shoot themselves in the foot. The base running issue, sending people at the wrong time, not playing station to station. I think that's what was so nice about what Winnipeg did. And yeah, they lost the game 12-11, but they keyed off their opportunity. It was a bunt here, it was a walk here, it was, oh, this ball could have done something, but we're gonna play station to station. It was the next man up. It was, okay, this guy's out. Let's. This guy had a bad day. He went 0 for 4. Let's get a pinch hitter in here. And people stepped up and they moved around. Maybe this is a move that Ben Miller got. But yet again, I wouldn't say that this is the reason. But if this is the reason, I think it's a really crappy reason to get rid of him. Winnipeg doesn't run a lot of pitchers on their staff. They have a lot of pitchers, but they don't run a lot of pitchers on their staff. So they have more people in the rotation to hit if something, and I think that's a big thing too. You maybe you look at what you have in your rotation or your bullpen and say, cut the line here, say, all right, these two people aren't cutting it, we gotta get rid of them, bring in 2 more opportunities for the field. Then you have options, then you have rotate, because really what you're running right now is the catcher and the first base is really the 2 that you're rolling with. And really the catcher is just the one that's kind of rolling right now in between Mondesi and Greeley. Will Decker, he's played in 8 games. He has a .298 batting average. Let's see, 7 hits, 3 doubles, 1 triple, 2 RBIs. But it's one of those where you're going to put him in the outfield because Mariaga, Castillo, and Del Valle are on top of that at, I guess Will Decker is at .292, so he's a little bit more, if we're just looking off at batting averages here, Will Decker is above Del Valle in that portion of it. Maybe you look, that's what's so difficult about this roster, is that I think the big issue with this roster, and the really big thing, the puzzle piece that's sitting there, where I could say, you know what, maybe you make Del Valle the DH role, right? He's not been the best. He's I think beginning of the year he was really good. I think he may be more comfortable out in right field. But then, okay, maybe he's uncomfortable in right field. Well, you have LG Castillo out there. And I don't really think LG is a left fielder. Okay, maybe you can roll him into the DH role. And then you could put Decker out and left. Well, what happens if Woodworth is back? Where are you going to put Diaz? It's just, there's a lot of decision making that has to be done. And I just don't know if everyone's being utilized the way they are. And it's kind of hard, I think Adam hit the nail on the head when he said that Lamar Rogers brings in players that already have a certain fault to them. When I look back at it, and as much as I kind of fall on him on this portion of it, but it's true. Jesus Rosario can throw really fast, but when you look at his numbers prior to coming to the RailCats, he walked a bunch of people, he hit a bunch of people. I don't know why you would go out and grab something like that. And there's no numbers that are really impressive at this point. I understand, maybe something wasn't working at first, and, maybe bringing in Contreras is a big step. Maybe that's a huge step that we're looking at. But it's one of those that, why would you Tapia may be making a lot more money. It wasn't bringing in the production numbers that you necessarily wanted, but he was your home run leader. He was maybe the guy that you would think about, maybe you'd hit the ball pretty far. Now Contreras could be that person that does that. A lot of these seems like it's a turn the roster over because this guy's not performing well. Well, why is that guy not performing well? I think we're at this point where we turn the roster over to a certain extent and nothing's happening. I want to have faith in all these players and the coaching staff, but what at one point something has to give, and that leads into the question is what does now. Granted, I know I've only seen him at I haven't seen him, but I knew he was at one game. But what does the new ownership want from this team? Are we just going to be? Or we're just going to hit the repeat button and have the same thing where the owner shows up for a handful of years or a handful of games a year and just write a check out and let it go? Or is the owner going to be more involved in the situation of, hey, this is what you got your thing, that's cool, but how are we going to put a winning product on the field? What do we need to bring a Miles Wolf Cup to the Steel Yard again? Where are those glory days? When can we bring those back? What is your plan? What I understand that it's not like the MLB or the NHL or NFL where you can have this 5-year plan, because you have to go off a year-to-year basis, really. I understand that's really tough. It's a year-to-year basis, but something you have to widen out and figure out your avenue. If that avenue is maybe plucking people that are from the Pioneer League or the Frontier League, in the off season, Gio Diaz is a perfect example of this. His numbers were really good in the Pioneer League. He comes over here, his numbers are still are really good with in the American Association. Is it about picking those players off? Is it picking up maybe a player that got cut? Maybe his numbers were a little bit inflated. Just depending on what league he's playing. But you gotta understand what the issue is and what the line of the maybe he just wasn't ready for that level of competition yet, so you bring him down to a little bit lower level competition. He can work on his craft and go forward. It just seems like they bring in these players that already have major defaults and issues, and that's what I'm not, how should I say, I'm not necessarily blaming the players. I'm not necessarily blaming the players and the coaches, because when at one point you have to be able to put the product in the field, and the product in the field has to show up for the coaches, or whatever the case may be. I understand that this is really the second year that Lamar Rogers really is in depth into the independent league baseball, and this is his first really official year of kind of managing the roster and trying to see what works. So am I going to harp religiously on the issue that this is all on Lamar Rogers? No. Am I going to harp that this is all on the players? No. But there has to be a fine line between the both. And I think that's what we're having. I think we're having a disconnect in the middle. This isn't like how should I say it? When I lost my train of thought real quick. The fine line in the middle. If this was a case of where the roster was completely flipped over, right? Completely flipped over, and you gave it a couple weeks and it still was just going nowhere, then this would be like, okay, either your managerial idea of what you want for this isn't working. But the issue is, yes, we've had turnover on the roster, but it hasn't been massive turnover. Okay, just looking at the roster or the stats alone, you've gotten rid of Tapia, Paulino, Hernandez, Abbott, and Reese. Well, Reese is a newer one. So that was okay. There's 4 players that got turned over on the fielding side. And then Miller and Santos are the only ones that got turned over. So that's 6 players in total that got turned over. And that that's more on the offensive side than it has been on the pitching side. When we look here at the top ERAs, it's Wilkeson, Phillips, Francis, Irwin, Cuello, Eisenbarger, Price, Sheeks, Miller, Valdez, Leon, Vivas, Nunez, and then Rosario. You know, how how do you, what are we, what is his idea of the roster turnover? You know it's just that at this point, if Rosario's played in 6 games and he's only pitched 3.2 innings, something's got to give. I mean, you now Racing Santos played a little bit last year, but you gave him 5 games and 4 innings pitched, and his ERA is 11.25. So where's the leash on that portion of it? Outside of that, the next highest ERA is Adi Nunez, and I think he's turned the corner a little bit. I think he's been a lot better. Vivas, you know, just looking at a couple of his games, his last game against Fargo really wasn't good. We're just gonna have to start talking about the Fargo really wasn't that good. Uh, Sioux Falls, Lake Country. There wasn't a lot of Milwaukee. I mean, there's a lot that's been going into this. He was very good at the beginning. Well, this was that was later on. Just looking at this year alone, he's given up 49 hits already. And I think he might have been better in the bullpen. So maybe you look at pulling him out of the starting rotation and leave Valdez in there, because Valdez is at a 568. It's a little bit more inflated over Sheik's at that point, but maybe he's your fifth. Maybe you just look at pulling Vivas. I get that Vivas played with the Columbia team. He pitched well there. I just think his calling should probably be the bullpen, because he was dominant there last year. He was one of the more dominant people in the bullpen. We could have him run 3 or 4 innings, or we could have him to be the shutdown guy. There has to be some kind of, and I know with Harrison Francis being out, that kind of turned it a little bit on its head. I still think you can rely on Wilkinson. I still think you can rely on Phillips. I think you can rely on Vivas and Valdez. I still think you can rely on them. I don't think that's an issue that you should get rid of them. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm just saying, I think when you're looking at the innings here, Vivas is pitched to 33.1 and Valdez pitched to 31.2. And his ERA is less than that. I think that automatically bumps you out. I'm sorry, just looking at that portion of it, I'm bumping you out. If we're just gonna look strictly at stats, now stats obviously don't tell you everything that goes on. A lot of these issues, like I was telling a Chuck, I think when you look at the league in a whole, I like to break it down this way. If your team gives up 4 to 5 runs and you don't win that game, that's going to be on the offense. If you give up, 6, 7 or more runs and you don't win the game, that's going to be on your defense and your pitching, right? Because sometimes defense plays a little bit into that portion of it. I don't want to keep harping on the pitching staff. Pitching is a very, very hard thing to do in this league. It's very hard to do in general in baseball. I think the biggest issue with the pitching is that when the team is on and pitching, it's when they're attacking the strike zone and they're playing the pitch clock to its highest potential, right? So they're really running it down. They're really, or running it down, or just speeding up the batter. They're throwing strikes. They're getting ahead in counts. I don't know how many times this year I've seen where they've gotten ahead in counts 0-2 and they end up walking the guy, or the guy gets a hit, right? Because they got themselves in a 2-2 situation, a 3-2 situation. You have to be able to. I personally believe that, yes, has there been errors that have plagued the RailCats this year? Yes. But that's with every team. Every team is going to give up errors. Like, that's just there's nothing that's not going to happen. I just want to see if I can just get the team's stats here. I don't care about all this rest of the other crap that they got going on here. No, give me what I want. Stats. I want team stats. Give me team fielding totals here. Okay. What's the ER? Is that errors? It's not really okay, but I mean, if we're just going off it, let's just say looking at fielding percentage, I guess I can't help you on that portion either because the RailCats are last in fielding too. They're at 969. But that doesn't. I'm gonna assume that these are they say hits. Yeah, but that it's off. It's not. I'm gonna say that these are errors. And the RailCats are third. They're at 45, but their fielding percentage is the worst of the league, not just by 0.001. But that doesn't really help my case. I think there have been games where the fielding has hurt the game and run it to a situation where we're running into an issue. Yes, that they're the minor little plays, the big rallies, that all that leads off of errors and misread plays. Now, when we're looking at the offensive portion of it, like I said, we really haven't had that one guy that really has come through in the power department. I think Mariaga has turned and flipped the page, and he's been very productive offensively. I think we could have seen Diaz numbers inflated, not inflated, his RBIs be pushed more if he was in a lower spot. But I really like him at the beginning. He's a good table setter. He takes walks. He can steal. I mean, if I'm just going, let's just look here. If I look at their stats, so he's stolen 24 bases and was only caught once. Like, that's a high percentage there. Like, I would keep that, going a little bit. I think is a good table setter there. Yeah, he has 2 errors against himself, and that happens. Errors happen, but it's not as bad as Lingual's at 16. But I'm also not blaming Lingual for all of his errors as well. You look at, if we look at stats and we look at, let's see, league stats here. You're not going to give me averages. What kind of crap is that? What kind of crap does the point streak want? I'm not going to do the average for this. When we look at hits here, the RailCats are up in the top echelon of hits at 358. Runs, they're down towards a little bit. Only they're above 4 teams at 207. Home runs, they are dead last at 28. RBIs, they're 4th from the bottom at 182. So, it's just one of those that even walks, they're 3rd from the bottom at 150. Doubles, they're dead last. Triples are not quite. Their triples are a little bit higher up. They're actually 4th at 8, tied with King County and Lake Country. But when you just look at the overall portion of this, that the doubles aren't there, the home runs aren't there, the RBIs aren't there. It's just seeming like we're just not getting. We're getting the clutch situations by certain people, or it's just one of those, like, you look at the roster, and if Gio doesn't have a good day, then LG's not going to have a good day. Then Mariaga's not going to have a good day. Lingual's not going to have a good day. Or you have Gio has a good day, Mariaga has a good day, but LG doesn't have quite a good day, or Lingual doesn't really have quite a good day, and nothing gets productively done. And then all four of them get going and things productive. But it's just there's not enough people that are dropping and helping. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Contreras can fall into that portion of it, but if one person isn't successful here, there's no one else to pick up the slack. Like I said, I think maybe that's why I think they really need more options, not so much in the bullpen or the starting rotation, but on the field. I think you have to be able to combat the situation, because I don't think pitching is going to get any easier coming into these summer months. So I think at this point you may take the bottom two pitchers that you feel that are bottom two pitchers, if it's via ERA or walks or however you want to put it all together, you get rid of them and you bring in two new fielders, and they could just be a potential pinch hitter, pinch runner, or just someone you want to try in a different spot. I think there is potential for left field to be open, if Will Decker goes there, if Devaya goes there, it could be just one of those things where you may have to rotate something, maybe trying Diaz at short, or Diaz at second and Woodworth at short. I know Woodworth might be hurt, so I mean a different story, and Lingual can just focus on his hitting. I just don't. The issue is I don't know how the roster is meant to construct. I thought going into this year we weren't going to necessarily care about what our fielding looked like, but we would be able to overcome our errors on the field by our bats. And I'm not saying that they're not productive, but the issue is that the at bats aren't productive. Okay, yeah, you could have a 500 batting average, go 2 for 4, but those times you went 2 for 4, there was no one on base and 2 outs. Oh, cool, you could maybe start something, but those other times that you got out, bases were loaded, or there was a runner on third, and all you needed to do was hit a ball out in the right field for a sac fly, and those weren't. I think there's a fine line between the clutch hitting. There's nothing wrong. I will always take someone that can get on base at a higher rate than someone who may hit a home run every 2 games. And the reason for that is because if you're going to give me a higher chance of getting on base, and that one guy finally hits that home run in that second game or the 1 to 2 games, at least that's 2 runs. Now if I have a line full of those players that can maybe hit a home run a game or every 2 games, it's not going to be successful, because you may have a handful of those people. Okay, let's put in that you have a handful of those people, and say you hit 3 home runs, but they're all solo shots because no one else can get on base. Well, you only score 3 runs. You need to be able to play the field a little bit, and I think that's where we're falling into the we're not really a small ball team, but we're acting like we're a small ball team. We're not really a power team, and it's starting to show a little bit. And I don't know. Like I said, I want to play devil's advocate on this, because I want to be straight down the middle. I can see where if you are arguing that it's on the managerial side of it, I get it. If you're arguing that's on the player side of it, I get it. I just want there to be something that gets something. If it's someone in the locker room saying, you know what, guys, that's just not going to cut it. Their focus has got to be there. If it's someone deciding to take that portion over and really be a voice in the locker room, then that's what we're going to need. I don't know if there's a voice in the locker room. I don't know if there's been that one person that's like, let's get it all together, right? Or maybe it's just something that's ran on the other side is, what is being said in that locker room? What is the expectation? What is the mindset? Is it a free for all and you guys do whatever you want and just show up when you show up and play how you want to play and just kind of go from there? I don't expect that to be the case. I expect Lamar Rodgers to run it like an actual organization and run it, foundationally or fundamentally. It's just I don't know what the issue that we're running into is. And I don't know that. No one knows that unless you're inside the locker room and what the necessary fault is in it. Are we having a divide between the players and the coaches? I hope not. I hope that everyone's in one unified team and we're just going through a rough patch, and maybe after we get through the All-Star break it's going to be different. Like I said, we're only 41 games in, all right? We're getting to the halfway point, yes. And are we dead last in the league? Not in the league, but we're pretty darn close because Winnipeg is the worst team in the league and we lost twice to them. Are we looking at here? This is what I'm gonna say. If we can't salvage most of this season and this little bit that we have till let me pull up the actual schedule. So right now, as it sits, we're at the 27th. So we have 3 more series until. Well, actually, I take that back. I'm saying the All-Star. Let's go to the All-Star break. The All-Star break is at the 17th. Now, by that time, it's already halfway. It's already going to be past the halfway point. But if we can't salvage majority of this season by the All-Star break, I would expect one or two things happening. Now, this is where we're going to see who or what runs this team. If we get to the All-Star break and we have really crashed and burned, right, and we're just going downhill, and Lamar Rodgers is still there, and he turns the roster completely over, right? That may be getting rid of some players that we really love, but we turn the roster over. And things aren't being salvaged, and maybe next year we look at something's got to change, or do we look at potentially if the owner says, I think we could make something work here. I look at the roster, I like it, I like the fight, but I just don't think that what's in place is successful as far as the managerial side of it. Maybe we look at a mid-season change. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't want that to happen. I like Lamar Rodgers. I think he's done a good job, but I just think I think what happens is I think at this point there has been a lack of leadership in the clubhouse. And I could be wrong. I just don't know what it is inside that clubhouse. I really wish I would know. But I think at this point we've had this discussion. There are two sides that are splitting between how this should be playing out, and this just shows that there are people that care what happens with this team. This isn't a terrible thing that we're talking about. This is not bad. This isn't ferocious. This is good. This brings a drive, a thirst for the team to be successful. And I think if you get the fan base behind something changing, maybe something will change in a positive manner. Not so much that we're saying people are losing their jobs, but if we get more people to the game and more people cheer them on, or more people act in a certain way when something bad goes on, maybe it'll change people's minds that, let's get going here. Let's do something different. Listen, you just have to get to the 4th spot. That's all you need. You just need to get to the 4th spot. and you're basically 4.5 games back from that 4th spot against King County, who's at 500. If they go on a heater right now, I'll feel better. But right now, I think we're starting to kind of see a bit of a split of what to really blame, what's really going on. I think last year it was easier to put, okay, this really wasn't Lamar Rogers' team. This was Greg Taggart's team. This isn't the way he wants to play it. But now it's, all right, this is the product you put on the field. What's not working? And what do we need to resolve that? I personally believe, as much as it may suck, that they need to either, one, go out and get another starter, another reliable starter. I should say another true starter, or no matter what you do, you're gonna have to take 2 people out of the bullpen. All right, you either take 2 people out of the bullpen and release them, get rid of them, trade them, do something. If that means I'll take these 2 people, and maybe there's a guy that's doing really good in the Frontier League or really good in the Pioneer League. Okay, I'll give you these 2 people for that asset, and then you sign another person, potentially for a pinch hitter or pinch runner, or whatever the case may be, or you just do a 2 for 2. Whatever the case may be, I think there's just something that needs to be redone. I don't think we just need to be in the business of, let this guy go and I'll sign this guy. Give me a trade. Give me something to show that you still believe that when I feel like when you cut someone, I feel like you don't have any value on them, and why did you bring them in the first place? That's my feeling, is if you go out and trade for someone, if you give up another asset for this asset, I think the mindset's a little bit different. I have a feeling that's really, were they struggling a little bit before Sam left? Yeah, but I really think the mindset started to switch when Abbott got released and didn't get anything for him. Then Tapia got released, didn't do anything for him. And you start signing these people, and you start bringing people in. It's just one of those, like, now that's on the edge, and maybe that's a thought process of some of the players, where if we're not successful right now, I'm not going to do well. And when it all kind of comes together, and I don't, the confidence is quite there. And when the confidence is there, then inconsistencies come there, and the team kind of falls apart. That's where I'm at on this one. I know this is a long little podcast, and there's plenty of discussions to go about all this stuff. But I just think that the 6-game road trip really kind of opened the eyes a little bit to, there's a dysfunction going on in this team, and something's got to get figured out. If that's, when they go to the All-Star break, I just hope they salvage something out of that. They need to, when they need to go to the All-Star break, they need to be more positive from that. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna go with that one. If you have any different ideas, I'd love to discuss them. Write your comments down below. I'll discuss them either in the comment section or the next podcast, or whatever the case may be. And that kind of stuff. We'd love to have those kind of discussions. Or if you feel like it and you say, you know what, I don't feel I can type all this out, maybe you want to come on the show. I'm more than likely to have you come on. We can talk for 40 minutes about the RailCats over a Zoom call and have an actual discussion, and just not sit behind a keyboard, that kind of stuff. Now, if you don't feel comfortable, I completely understand that. But I'm just saying I'm opening up the avenues for it as well, because sometimes I get a solo show maybe a little redundant to a certain extent, but I'm just, like I said, I'm just opening that up. Opening that portion of it up to potentially, if you want to come on and we can have a discussion 40 minutes or whatever the case may be. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for me. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the good social media platforms that you may have it on, and Spotify. I don't have it on, YouTube and Spotify are the main 2 that it gets posted to. If you want to listen to it, I'm looking to branch out, but we'll go from there when we get to that portion of it. But I want you to enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, whenever you're watching this or listening to this, and Go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green and white.